Is this the best drone on the market today for those that are drone novices, photographers, hobbyists, those looking to just get into the use of their drone for the first time? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. This is the Hover Air X1, and I talk a little bit about this drone, the benefits of this drone, why I purchased it, and what I like and dislike about it, and some examples of the use of this drone. So for years, I thought it would be cool to have a drone, to be able to capture unique vantage points, smooth content, some of that follow me kind of content, epic landscapes. I really just always appreciated the type of content that can be created only through the use of a drone. So I've wanted a drone for a really long time, but there's some things that held me back from getting a drone as well. Number one, the cost of a lot of the drones that are on the marketplace. The fact that I have very little hand-eye coordination, not a video gamer. So the idea of being able to effectively being able to control the drone, I was unsure about. Not wanting to invest in something I didn't use all that often, or the fear of potentially crashing it on day one and all that money going down the drain. So I wanted something that was affordable, something that was user-friendly, something that was going to meet my use case, but at the same time wasn't going to be overly complicated. And that's where enter the Hover Air X1. So why the Hover Air X1 specifically? So funny enough, this is a drone that I saw advertised on Facebook. So I'm not sure how many times you've been on Facebook and saw advertisements that you've actually clicked on, or that actually led you to purchasing that item. Maybe you're a shopaholic and you can't help yourself. But I can't remember, there's only a handful of times that I've seen an ad on Facebook that actually worked. So congratulations to Hover Air for making a video and making social media content that was very appealing, that made me click on it and made me buy it. So as I looked into the details of this, it checked a lot of boxes for me. And so that's one of the first things as to how I came across this in the first place. And otherwise probably would have never known about this, because it is a direct to consumer product. So to the best of my knowledge, they don't sell their product on B&H or other retail websites. It's direct from them and their website. So I probably wouldn't have heard about it if not for Facebook. So some additional reasons for why the Hover Air X1. Part of that was the ease of use. This drone, it has very little buttons on it, a power on button and then a function button, and that's it. And the function button allows you to kind of rotate through various modes, which we'll talk more about here in a second. It also has an app that you can use on your phone that syncs up with the drone. That's how you actually get it started, but also your video files end up on your phone. You can also select some of those modes and customize those modes via your cell phone. So very easy to use, and basically the instant I took it out of the box, in no time at all, I was able to use it almost right away, which again is a major plus as to why I picked this and why I'm happy that I picked this one as my first and currently only drone. The second thing was the price. At the time I purchased the X1, it was $349. So very affordable. Obviously not the cheapest drone on the marketplace. I didn't want something that was going to be so cheap that was going to fly twice and break, or that wouldn't have some level of quality and sophistication to it. So I wasn't looking to buy a $50 or $100 drone, something out of a Cracker Jack box or something, right? So, but I also didn't want to spend $600 to $1,000 on a drone either. At the time I bought this, one of the competitive products that was around the same size and had some of the same functionality, not exactly a one-to-one, but was the DJI Mini 3 drone. And that was at the time a $549 drone with a camera. So that was $549 as opposed to the $350 I spent. So it was a bit cheaper. Now the DJI Mini 3 that I was looking at in comparison to this was able to shoot 4K video. This drone actually shoots 2.7K video. So it's somewhere halfway between 1080, which is full HD, and 4K. I think that's sufficient enough, especially for the amount of memory that it utilizes, both in the drone and on your cell phone. When you're transferring those files, it's kind of a nice happy medium, if you will, where you're getting above 1080, but you're not quite at the 4K. I'm going to talk a little bit about at the end of this video, the newer version of the X1, which actually not only shoots 4K, but also shoots 8K video. So yes, it is kind of tempting to upgrade, but probably at least in the short term, I don't use this quite enough or want to spend that extra money to get the upgraded version, at least for now. So this comes in at 125 grams, so it is very lightweight. The nice thing about this drone too is that it folds up. So you can see the form factor here is very, very small. And the nice thing about that small form factor is that it easily fits in almost all my camera bags. So this is nice, and something that, again, was a feature I was looking for, where I could throw it in my camera bag if I was going out and about in the day and wasn't sure if I was going to use it or not. Maybe I was going to use it on a photo shoot, for example, but it was then too windy to use it. So I didn't mind that the lightweightness and the small compact size of it was something that I took up a little bit of room in my camera bag. And I think for traveling too, I have a big vacation coming up. I'm planning to take this along, where again, it's not going to take up too much room in the bag and it's not going to weigh me down. It's just an easy, why not, kind of thing to throw into the bag. The flight time on the X1 is up to 30 minutes. So it's not bad. I don't know how that compares to every other drone in the marketplace. You guys can look that up yourselves. But I thought 30 minutes definitely met my needs and was sufficient enough for the use cases. In a lot of cases, I'm just using this for small snippets of footage to kind of add into either B-roll content or something interesting and unique that I can put on Instagram. So I don't really need a super long flight time. We'll talk more about the modes and functionalities of it here in a minute, which also might kind of factor into why you don't need long flight times on this particular drone as well. I did buy a second battery for this so that I could double that length of time as well. And in theory, I could be charging that other battery while I have one battery in use. So I could have pretty much an entire day of flying if I wanted to. But again, in my case and in my use case, I've never really needed beyond the 30 minutes of flight time, an hour at most, particularly if it was kind of working overtime, fighting against the wind or something like that. Having that extra battery was a nice plus. I mentioned the smartphone app earlier, and it is kind of nice that it is integrated with your phone, makes it easy to transfer those files. I can instantly post them up to Instagram. I can instantly share them with someone else. That's, again, if I'm shooting with a model, for example, I can just Dropbox or airtime them over to them right away, airdrop them over to them right away, and they can have it right away as well if I want to do that. You could, of course, edit it right in your phone if you so desire, but it's also super easy for me to take it from my cell phone to my MacBook and be able to edit on the MacBook as well, just airdropping it to myself that way. So the app's nice, but the app is also nice because you can do a lot of customization within the app. So you can customize some of the flight modes as well as some of the features of this in the app. And then lastly, the thing that I kind of knew but just discovered but haven't actually used myself yet is that you do have the ability to do complete flight control via the app as well. So the way this X1 drone flies is really on what they call flight modes, and there's 5 flight modes. And those flight modes are basically predetermined, pre-programmed functionality and flight paths for this drone. So as opposed to another drone that might be remote controlled or might be more even app controlled, where you're going to send it up in the air, your goal is to fly it out to a certain distance or up to a certain height and capture an environment. Maybe it's a landscape, or maybe it's even a cityscape, or to fly out a distance and do some interesting maneuvers or whatnot, to create that kind of content. That's not really the primary use of this drone. It's more about being like a selfie cam and being like, how can you take this and create content as a solo content provider and content creator, and used it in that way. That's really the sweet spot and the core functionality of this one. So, but I do like the idea that in the manual flight mode via the app, you do have some ability to be able to use it like a traditional drone. So I'm hoping, especially since I might be in some very wide open environments, heading to Montana and North Dakota and Utah and Idaho, places that have a lot of open land. So I'm really hoping that I can test out some of those modes, and I'll get back to you in another video. And I'm sure I'll have some video content I'll share as well from the capture of those locations on some future content as well. So just know that that's, the primary functionality use case of this is really that solo creator, easy content creation, short and simple kind of flight capture and content. So a couple of downsides to the X1 that I want to mention before we get into the flight modes. And that is, one, I mentioned it being very lightweight, but the downside is that it's also very lightweight. So it's not the most robust of materials, and there's some things on it that I do kind of hold it and use it and pack it away gingerly because I'm afraid of it breaking. It is a pretty durable plastic, but I wouldn't say it's a composite material. I don't think anyway. It just seems to be more of a pretty strong, rigid plastic, but it is still plastic. There is a cage that covers up all the blades, so you're not going to get hit with them on your fingers, but also really there's probably little chance, unless you're going to hit a tree or a twig or something like that, that could break off the propeller blades on this. So they're kind of encapsulated, which is kind of nice, but it's also, even the camera on the front of it, I have concerns that it just feels a little flimsy, and that maybe if knocked around the wrong way or in the bag the wrong way, that it could get damaged or broken relatively easy. So definitely one of my concerns. Also, the lightweight nature of the drone also means that it can't fly in all conditions. So it doesn't have to be super windy for it still not to be flyable. A light breeze is fine. I've still been able to fly it in a light breeze, but really the sweet spot for it is no wind. So, and again, that's the size and the weight. It's probably to be expected. I will say that the new version of this does have stronger motors and stronger propellers in it. So I think it can withstand a little bit more wind than this one probably can. But that's not worth the upgrade, at least to me. The other downside for this drone in particular, not necessarily for me in my use case, but is that it does need some contrast detection in order to be able to safely fly and also reorient itself to land and take off and things like that. So what I mean by that is that they don't recommend that you fly it over water, for example. They also don't recommend you fly it, I believe that they don't recommend you fly it over snowy environments where it's just kind of a solid white, and it may be very hard for the camera to detect where it's at and oriented and distance and height and also landing again. So those are two of the downsides to this. A couple of downsides, I guess, to this particular drone. But again, for my use case, my purposes, those weren't a drawback, obviously, because I bought it anyway. So when we talk about those 5 flight modes, we're just going to walk through those real quickly. But this particular drone, you launch it from your hand. So the launch of this is the camera facing you, and the camera will detect your face and knows that you're ready to go. And once you click the power button and have launched, hit it into launch mode, it's going to do a countdown. It has a light indicator on the front that changes from red to green or green to red. I forget which sequence it is, but that indicates when it's ready to fly. You'll hear it counting down, and then it will actually launch off of your hand. Then actually when it goes to land, especially in those modes that it's not just a sequence and then it's going to fly up and then fly back down and end its flight. There's some modes where it might be flying continuously until you're done or it runs out of battery, one of the two. So you actually hold out your hand, and that's the signal for it to come back to your hand, and then it's going to find, with the camera on the bottom, detect your hand and land again on your hand. So that's kind of convenient. There's probably some drawbacks to that as well, as far as you lose a little bit of that front end of the footage that you have to kind of clip out, but not a big downfall or downside. So the first mode is called hover mode, and this is really the selfie camera mode. So instead of holding out a selfie or a cell phone to take a selfie, basically the concept is this is going to fly out to a predetermined distance and then just stay put right there. So it's not doing any additional movement other than staying in front of you. And if you move to the left or the right, it does have eye detect to stay in front of you, but it's going to stay at that exact same distance directly in front of you. And this is kind of that nice standing still talking head, but I want steady footage, you know, kind of shooting mode. I don't have a tripod. I don't want to do the arm outreach even on a steady cam, but you want some camera directly in front of you. So that's what the first mode is. Again, that's hover mode. The next mode is called zoom out mode, and this is pretty self-explanatory, but again, on a predetermined distance that you can either control by toggling through the options on the top of it or in setting in the camera app. It's going to fly out and then fly up and then fly out to a predetermined distance. So, but it's going to do that in kind of a zoom out mode, if you will. So in theory, you're standing still. The camera is zooming out away from you to the distance that you have it set for. You start out with a relatively close-up shot, and you end up with a wide shot that captures more of the environment. The next flight mode is called orbit mode. And in orbit mode, the drone is going to capture a 360 image around you as the subject. So this is a pretty fun one. It's actually one that I use a lot with models. It's one that they can have fun with while they're spinning around. It's one that they can do that show off the fashion that they're wearing in a full 360 look. So it's definitely a fun mode. Again, you can determine how big that circle is that goes around you, and you can control that in the settings via the app. The one challenge with that mode that I will say is that I basically have to hide myself. So either I have to run behind the drone to stay out of the shot, or go hide behind a tree or hide behind a bush or something like that. So a lot of times I'll have the model, have it on her hand, I'll go hide and get out of the shot. Because at some point as it's making that 360 around, the camera's probably going to capture me in the background, which sometimes you don't want, right? So, but also because of that 360, you know, it may capture other footage within that scene that you don't necessarily want as well, depending on how much junk or clutter or whatever other stuff that's not as aesthetically pleasing might be in that shot as it's making its way around. So something to be aware of. I think it's a great mode for when you're out in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere. I think it's a great spot to use it, as is the next mode. So the next mode is probably the most drone-like of the modes, if you will, and that's the bird's eye mode. So when you think about a drone, you think about flying high and getting that kind of that bird's eye view, and that's what the bird's eye mode does. So basically, again, you can predetermine if you want it to fly at certain heights and altitudes. So, and I don't have those written down, so I'm gonna put them on the screen here below as far as the options for how high it can fly and the different settings for that. But basically it's going to launch off your hand and then go straight up. So this can be a scenario where you want to capture the footage on the way up, or you really want to use the footage on the way down as it's kind of zooming down into the scene. So there's really two different ways you can use that, maybe three if you want to use the up and the down. But one of the things I'd like to do with this in particular is when I'm using this with models, for example, is I'll have the model actually launch it and then lay on the ground, or be sitting on the ground, launch it because it needs to detect your face, and then lay down. So I'm not as concerned about the up motion as much as the down motion. But then they can kind of be posing and laying on the ground as it's kind of capturing from above. It's capturing that whole scene. I will say too, a lot of times, depending upon where I'm standing, it's going to capture me in the shot because it's going to go so high that it's going to have such a wide shot. It's going to capture a lot more stuff, but that's easy to kind of edit out and just pick the piece of the content that you want. But this is a very fun mode. Again, it's something that the options for how high you want it to fly is nice depending upon how windy it is. Maybe you want to avoid hitting a ceiling if you're using it inside, or if it's you don't want to hit a tree or a tree limb that's above you, or maybe you're just in an environment where you want it to be less visible to folks around. I don't want to say you're flying illegally. I'm just saying that maybe you just want to be less conspicuous, so you don't want to fly it up too high. in that scenario maybe either. So the last of the 5 main flight modes is what's called follow mode. And in the follow mode, the camera is going to go out again to a predetermined distance, and then it's going to follow you. This is kind of like the walk and talk kind of footage that maybe you want to capture. Maybe it's not even a walk and talk, maybe it's just a walk, and you want to capture yourself walking in an environment. So if you say to this that you want to have it go out 4 feet, for example, it's going to hover exactly at 4 feet beyond you. And then with that, with the camera and the algorithms within the software, as you're moving towards the camera, it's going to continually move backwards away from you. The challenge, of course, with this is you have to make sure that you don't accidentally guide it into a tree or guide it into something that's, into a car or something else, right? So you do have to be kind of aware of your environment. The other option is that as opposed to flying in front of you, it can also fly behind you at a predetermined distance. So again, maybe you just want that you're kind of walking into a scene kind of shot and you want it following from behind you. You can do that as well. The interesting thing with that zoom out mode too is that you can actually have it zoom straight out, or you can have it fly out and also gain altitude. So you can really get creative in how you use that mode, and I think it's a really fun mode to utilize in footage and think about, again, what's the best, based on the scenery you're trying to capture and include, what makes the most sense for the video you're trying to capture. So I've been saying this entire time there's 5 follow modes, and I know I was forgetting one, so there's actually a 6th. The 6th follow mode is what's called dolly mode. And the dolly mode is really what it sounds like, where in a movie set or a movie production, you might have a camera on a dolly, which means a cart, something with wheels typically that's going to follow alongside of someone and create that smooth motion of kind of sideward movement and motion. So in that mode, the camera is basically going to fly to your left or your right, depending on where you position it, and it's going to follow you from the side. So again, there's some creative ways you can utilize that, and this is particularly useful, I think, if you want to have either the dolly mode or the follow mode are probably what you're going to use for any action scenes. In particular, if you're trying to do something like a skateboarding video or a video riding your bicycle, or I was going to say surfing, but it doesn't work over water, but anything where you're doing something like that where you want to capture while you're moving from the front or the side or the back, those are the 2 modes you're going to want to use for that. So I just want to wrap up this video with a couple of details on the new version of this Hover Air X1, and that is they have released the X1 Pro and the Pro Max. Again, below I'm going to put a link to the Hover Air website where you can learn more about each of these and see which one might be best for you. It is not an affiliate link, so I don't get paid for promoting or doing this video, just sharing my perspectives on a tool that I really like. But the new version of this actually comes in at $699 versus the $350 that I paid for this. So it is significantly more, but it does have a lot of additional functionality that might be appealing to you. First of all, it does shoot 8K. I kind of mentioned that before, but as opposed to this being a 2.7K video capture, that jumps all the way up to 8K. And I'm sure you can downsize it to 4K too if you prefer that. The second big difference is that this one flies at up to 15 miles per hour for those follow modes. The new version is 26 miles per hour. So they really are aiming at a fast action sports selfie capture type of audience for this camera in general, but also specifically for the X1 Pro and Pro Max. So for example, in their website, on their videos, you'll see things like snowboarding, skiing, high-speed bicycle action, could potentially follow you in a car or vehicle, running, those kind of things. It's going to be doing an even better job of being able to capture that content. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, you actually said with the Pro version, you talked about surfing and maybe water skiing or skiing on snow. And I thought you said before you couldn't fly it over water or snow. And that's true for the X1, but it's not true for the new version. So they've created some new algorithms and camera detection systems in that allow it to be able to fly over more surfaces and more effectively and more safely and still return back to you without crashing into the ocean. It also has a longer flight time. So the new version has 43% longer battery life, has stronger motors and propellers on it, so it can fly in more windy environments. And of course, those things help with the speed of being able to fly faster as well. And lastly, I think the other big change for the Pro and Pro Max version of the Hover Air is that it includes the option of, and I believe this is just on the Pro Max, it provides the option of a memory card that you can put into the camera. So that'll be a mini SD card, but it is nice to be able to have an internal storage and have extended longer storage for content, especially when you're shooting 4K or 8K. Also, it's nice that if you happen to fill up that memory card, you can then easily replace it with another memory card, as long as you have battery life, of course, and be able to continue to fly and capture content if you so desire. So there's also a lot of accessories that are also new for the Pro and Pro Max. I won't go into all the details of those because I don't have one, but also you can look at those on the website, obviously. But there's some interesting remote controls and follow things, and I think they might even have some systems for audio recording that are different in the new version. That is something I actually did mention earlier in the video that I'm just now thinking about. This does not capture sound on the X1. The only way to do that is to use the app and use your phone. So you can use your phone as a recording device. You probably could then either take like a Rode mic or like a lav mic or an external mic and plug it into your phone and use that as the audio source. You could probably use a lav mic like this and plug it in to your cell phone, and then you would just have to sync up the footage on the other end as far as the audio and the video. So this does not capture audio directly into the drone, which, as you can imagine, probably doesn't really have much of a use case anyway, because you're either overlaying music or you're not really trying to capture audio as this thing's flying. Plus, of course, the noise of the propellers and things like that probably prevent that from being functional anyway. So probably not that big of a deal. Probably not any drones in the market that can do that, but I would imagine DJI is another one because they have an entire microphone and lavalier system that may be integrated in some way into their drones. So again, hopefully this was helpful in just providing some insights as to why I decided to purchase the Hover Air X1. If you're looking for a small, portable, easily usable, doesn't take up much room in your camera bag, but still creates quality content, maybe you too could consider the X1. If you look down here below, you'll see some additional links to, I'm gonna put up some additional videos showcasing some of the models that I've worked with and having them utilize this on photo shoots and some of that content that we were able to capture with that. So look for that additional video. Again, I appreciate your watching. Please, if you would, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment with any questions you might have or any thoughts if you are an X1 user as well. And also down in the description, I'm gonna put a link to a video of a woman who does a great job at talking about how you can really maximize the use of this and get some even better footage. It's a video that I've been studying and trying to get better at the use and capture of content with this, but still a long ways to go for me. But she has some great tips that I'll include in that video as well. So thanks again for watching and stay tuned for the next video.